Welcome to Celtic Sagas and Law, episode 14. I am your host, Martin Vaughan Watkin. I'd like to do two stories for you in this episode. The first one involves Shekin the fiddler. One night, Shekin was walking home across a lonely heath, and he suddenly noticed some dancing lights twinkling in the darkness nearby. So he went to investigate and came upon a fine palace. He was quite sure the palace had not been there when he passed earlier in the day. Feeling rather nervous, he moved closer, and a crowd of little people were dancing through the palace doorways and called to him, Shekin, Shekin, come and play your fiddle for us." Shekin was delighted with the invitation, because he knew there was only the best musicians were chosen to play for the fae. He took the fiddle from his satchel, and he walked and followed the little people into the palace. Shekin played dance tunes on his fiddle, and the magnificent hall, the fairies whirled around, bright and happy, weaving in and out and lightly as the air. Then Shekin played the fiddle livelier and wilder tunes. He felt he had never played so best in all of his life. Watching the fairies dance so nimbly had given him a strange energy. Tune after tune, dance after dance, no one was counting, and no one cared how late it was. At last one of the little people called him, Shekin, that is enough for now. Come and eat something to eat, you must be exhausted. They took Shekin to a table that was laden with most delicious foods. After he'd eaten his fill, the poor fiddler could hardly keep his eyes open. He felt so tired he could have slept on a pincushion. There was a green chair that was long and soft and comfortable, and he sat down for a short rest. Soon he stretched out the chair and was fast asleep. When Shekin woke up, the fairies, the palace, and the soft green chair were gone. He was lying on a grassy mound with his fiddle and satchel by his side. He got up and rubbed his eyes, and he'd heard a clinking sound in his pocket. Shekin was a poor fiddler who had never had much money. He slid his hand in his pocket and was surprised to find a little bag containing 20 gold pieces. A fortune. It was his payment for playing the fiddle for the fairy dance. Now, in Celtic law, there are many stories of people encountering the fays and being rewarded with large amounts of gold or other great gifts, but with a caveat that if they tell or misuse the gift, then it is gone. And Shekin knew this, so he was under the impression that he should not tell anybody where he got the gold from. So he set off home. You imagine how pleased his wife would be, just in time to come to his senses. When he arrived home, Shekin climbed up to the attic of the cottage and hid the bag of gold in the thatch roof. Some time later, Shekin's wife was fretting and sighed because they were so poor. Shekin felt sorry for us. He sneaked into the attic and returned to the kitchen. He pressed a gold piece into her hand without saying a word. "Where did you get this gold?" she asked in amazement. "Have you any more? Are you rich?" For weeks, Shekin's wife pestered him for the question. In the end, he whispered the secret to her. 20 gold pieces, shrieked his wife. "Let us see the treasure." When Shekin pulled the little sack from the thatch roof, there was no clink of coins, and he opened it. To his great dismay of his wife and himself, he found there was nothing inside but a bag of cockle shells, and this was his punishment for betraying the fairy secret. Now, the second story is about Enoch the barber. Now, Enoch was apprenticed to a barber to King March, and one day the master barber said to Enoch, "Right, I'm retired now, but you have to go to the king to cut his hair. But remember, no matter what happens, do not tell anybody the king's secret." Of course not, master." So Enoch went to the king and was shown by his courtiers to the king's room. So he entered into the king's chambers, and the king was seated there by himself. The door closed and there was only Enoch, and the king left. So the king said to Enoch, "If you tell anybody what happens in this room, you shall be put to death." "Of course, your majesty, of course." So with that, the king sat down, pushed his hair back, and King March had the ears of a mule. Taken aback slightly, Enoch quickly recovered himself and cut the king's hair. obviously cut in a style which he covered the ears. So the king rewarded Enoch with many silver pieces, and over the months Enoch became quite rich. But the secret weighed heavy on him, and in the end he became quite ill. His wife became concerned. She said to him, What is it that troubles you, husband? Tell me, perhaps I can help. So Enoch faintly shook his head and said, No, wife, I can't tell you. So Enoch's health continued to deteriorate. In the end, the doctor was summoned. The doctor said to him, Look, whatever is concerning you, you must tell somebody, or it will kill you in the end. So Enoch, with the fear of being put to death, went out into the woodlands to the marsh area, and he whispered it to the reeds. The secret, march as mule's ears, he whispered into the reeds. So with this unburdening of his secret, Enoch felt much better and continued quite merrily on his way. A few weeks later, it was the king's birthday, and a great musician was called for from the city. Now the musician was travelling, and he realised that he'd left his flute behind. So he sighed heavily to himself and said to himself, there's a reeds there, I shall cut myself a new flute. So he went up to the reeds, and he cut himself a flute, and then using his knife whittled himself a new flute. With this he went to the palace, and a great feast was underway, and everybody was invited, including Enoch and his wife. So the renowned musician was called upon, and he went up, and he thought to start his flute. So he blew hard on his new flute, and from the flute no music came, but the words, march as mule's ears. And he thought, everybody was taken aback, so he blew again, and again out of the flute came, mule as march ears. So Enoch shouted, I'm sorry, Lord, I did not tell a soul, I just whispered into the woods. March stood for a minute with a scowl on his face, then started to laugh aloud, and stood up and revealed his mule ears to the court. And then with that, as he was a good king, his people loved him, and he ruled for many more years afterwards. And Enoch breathed a great sigh of relief. So I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope to see you in episode 15.